Okay, I'm going to call it to order. You have a roll call.
Arnold.
Here.
Beckwith.
Here.
Farkapisi.
Here.
Kotsinis absent. Linsdau.
Here.
Sutton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Warren Newport Public Library District provides the community with access to information, kindles the imagination of children and adults, and supports lifelong learning. Would anyone like to speak in public comment? Okay. There's one piece of written correspondence. It's, I'll just pass it around. Something I got in the contact form. Any other?
No,
That's
we
it.
don't have.
Okay. All right, anyone want to remove anything from the consent? Okay, can I have a motion to approve as presented?
So move, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Okay, we're on to the resolution. That is, what page is it?
Page 18.
Page 18. Do we have to read this?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
You
Okay.
want to?
Nope.
That'd be nice. And then
All right, so next is a motion to appoint our new trustee. Who would like to make the motion?
I would love to move to appoint.
Here, George.
George, I brought the brownies too, come on.
I'm forgetting Wendy's last name.
Hamilton.
I move that we appoint Wendy Hamilton to replace Jennifer Cheng as library trustee.
I second.
Any discussion? Let's have a roll call for that.
Arnold.
Aye.
Linsdau. Aye. Farkapisi.
Aye.
Kotsinis.
Aye.
Sutton.
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Yay.
Yay! All right, so now Bonnie's going to take over.
Okay, so Wendy, if you would like to stand, we're going to do the official oath of
Okay.
office, okay?
Raise my hand.
Bonnie,
Yes.
do you want to do it in front of us?
Oh, over here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let me bring a pen.
Tina, I'm moving your chair, so don't sit without looking.
Okay, through my mask. Is this one working? Yeah.
It's on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I, Wendy Hamilton,
I, Wendy Hamilton.
having been appointed to the office of trustee for the Warren Newport Public Library District
Having been appointed to the office of trustee for the Warren Newport Public Library District
in the state of Illinois and the county of Lake,
in the state of Illinois and the county of Lake,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of library trustee according to the best of my ability.
the duties of the office of the library trustee according to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes. She keeps one.
There we go.
Thank you.
Hey. Congratulations. Thank you. I'm so excited. Okay, so now it's a recess. We're gonna have a little recess and visit a bit and congratulate you, and I think there might be some snacks.
Well, there are, and I was told that
And it
we
is
can't take our
7:05.
masks off, so here's what we're gonna do, folks. I made brownies. First time in over a year, I think. So, George, you can share yours too, sorry.
I made brownies as well. These
You
are
did?
gluten-free.
These are
Wait,
gluten-free
just a
too.
second. Gina reminded me, we have to make a motion. I
Oh,
move
yes.
to enter into recess for formal acknowledgement of an incoming trustee. Who would like to second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained.
Okay.
Cool. Now it's 7:06.
Now we can.
Can we just go on? Ready to go on? Okay, so, sorry. It is 7:16. We're back in session. I move that we edit the social time from this meeting's recording.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Okay. Okay, President's report. Just for you, we're gonna try to define what these things are, so I write this every month. I just say what things I've worked on and how I've spent my time. And so questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Other people have reports?
I'll start with just a simple one. You know, it's a library. We love our books. The recipe that you see here was started in one of our cookbooks here in the library.
All right, anyone else? Okay, so every month Ryan puts a report in the packet, and so now he's up.
Yeah, and this report is a comprehensive report of, what the highlights of what's going on at the library, looks at each department, what's going on in each department. So it's a big picture review of operations, what we've done the past month, includes statistics as well, the continued education of staff. So there's a lot of information in here. The one thing that is not in this executive director's report that I want to share with the board, if you were not aware, is somebody in this room is celebrating their 30th anniversary with WNPL on the 29th, and that someone is Noreen Reese.
Oh, well then more brownies. Congratulations, Marie.
Congratulations.
Oh my goodness.
So we had a really nice celebration just 5 years ago, and this year I think in admin we'll do some like low-key things that Noreen doesn't know about yet, but we're not a big party due to the situation, but as I think the board knows, several of you have worked with Noreen longer than I have, and she's just an amazing asset to WNPL, and she's just done so much of her 30-year career, and I just want to thank her publicly at the board meeting for her service to WNPL. So.
She's smiling.
And then, otherwise, when we get into library operations here in a little bit, I can provide some, which is next, I can provide a few further updates. But any questions about what's in the report?
What were the final summer program numbers?
Where did we end up?
With minutes,
Yeah.
it was 947,
Yeah. So we
Wow.
we were not quite there, but that's why we didn't make a big thing on social media, because it's it's kind of hard, I think, but we were just short despite our
But we surpassed prior year.
last year we did. Yeah. I don't remember what was last year. Do you remember?
750.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we did quite well.
Sure.
We did 1 million, obviously a couple years before. We knew it was a pretty ambitious goal, but I think all things considered, staff did an amazing job, and there was good engagement for summer reading, and I think it will get stronger with each year. It was another interesting summer. So, but we were close, but not quite there. But I'm proud of the staff and the work they put into it, and I feel like the planning went well. I feel like the theme was great. So I think it was a really strong program overall.
Okay. Anything else on this? Okay, operations.
So if you look at our traffic numbers over the past couple of weeks, we are picking up in traffic. So last week we were up 14.9% increase in traffic compared to the previous week. And I think a lot of that could be attributed to the back to school. We're not getting the same traffic with teens as we have historically. If you think about it, some of the social elements have been removed from the library, unfortunately. If you go into the vault, you'll see it's set up differently. We've got seats spread out. We don't have the gaming. But at least we're picking up, and unless the board indicates otherwise, we're still moving forward with some limited in-person programming here in the next month with some guidelines in place like story time. So I feel encouraged. In terms of the mask requirement, there are patrons that still are not thrilled about that, but we continue to listen to the guidance of the CDC, Illinois Department of Public Health, and Lake County Health Department. If you look at the numbers for COVID, what I like to do is look. I know COVID doesn't have a geographical boundary, but I do like to look at what's going on in Gurnee and our surrounding communities. And the numbers aren't great, but they've pretty much been level for the past week or so in terms of the rolling average. 8/16 positivity rate was 5.49%. The latest number I have was 8/22, 5.07%. So at least in our area, cases don't seem to be getting out of control like they are, like say Southern Illinois. You've heard of some bad instances downstate. So that's, I guess, good news. So we continue to monitor the situation. Once we get below that 5% positivity rate, I think we can discuss relaxing the mask requirement potentially, but we're still there for now. So any questions about library operations or mask requirements?
What about Sunday hours?
Yeah, Sundays we are, I think this is a matter of which Sunday we start. We're going to talk with the management team about that, but I think, like historically we do it that Sunday after Labor Day. So if staffing's not an issue, that's the goal. If staffing does be an issue, I think it'll be temporary, George. So it may be a delay or two with Sundays, but I'm pushing for the normal Sunday opening.
Excellent.
So the only roadblock we might have would be potentially staffing. But our staffing levels are getting back up to where they need to be. We're not there yet, but we've made some recent hires, and I'm really proud of my department heads because it's been a challenge. Some departments more than others, but we're getting those positions filled. So that's encouraging. And in a very, very difficult job market to do that, as you all know.
Mhm.
So. Yeah. LED is essentially finished in terms of the final numbers. You will recall for this last major phase of the project, we had $150,000 budgeted last fiscal year. The project kind of bled over to this fiscal year with some of the changes we didn't anticipate, and we've talked about some of them. We did budget another $15,500, so that brought our total budget up to, well, the original budget was $150. So after all was said and done with the fees, the incentives back, we spent $167,794.12. So starting off where we originally started last year to where we ended up, I guess we were just short of $18,000 over, but we did account for some of that with this year's fiscal budget and put some money into the budget. So, all things considered, obviously you want to be under budget with a project like this, but these extra expenditures we had were not anticipated. We didn't, whether there was an issue with the plans or whatnot. Kevin can get into more details if you'd like. We just had, several instances where they went into something and they're like, wait a second, this isn't quite right. This said it needed these lights, but we need these lights. This is going to be additional expenditure. So, but it's done, and we're more energy efficient. So overall, I think we're pleased with how it ended up. Questions about LED?
You're up, Andrea.
Okay, folks, this is our year-end statement. So, just a couple of things that I wanted to ask about. And one was, it's not, I don't expect it to appear on the June statement, but you know how we talked about moving funds to CDs from the Illinois money market fund that gives us next to nothing, so we can move up to making a pittance, a mere pittance. Is that underway? Do we, what's the timing of that?
It is, and perhaps at the committee of the whole, I can give you an updated, like
Okay.
a report. Yeah, so I'll put that on my notes.
Okay. So speaking revenue-wise, we got more revenues this year than we had budgeted for, and the main cause of that is the federal grant for expenses related to COVID. So personnel expenses, when we, our doors were not open and people were being paid anyway, and also encouraging people to stay home from work instead of coming in when they were sick, to spread that around. And expenditure-wise, you know, our biggest expenses where we were over budget was our cleaning monthly contract, which we were over 10,340, and telephone, and that was mainly caused because of we purchased hotspots for patrons to use, and that, I believe, was put under telephone. So, did people check those out a lot?
Yeah, they're very popular. They started off slow, but they're very popular now. Yeah, they're out almost all the time. Yeah.
I think our board made the right decision to get the hotspots, and, you know, when children or people's internet went out, they could still do their homework. And that, the only other question I have was, did we find out if the window that broke, we don't know why, was it covered by insurance, or?
I don't think so.
Okay. And does anybody, those are my questions or comments, does anybody else have any? So Wendy, our budget goes from July 1st to June 30th. So this is our last set of financial statements for this year. And then we get audited every year because we have to. So, does anybody have any other questions?
I just want to mention with the monthly financial reports in the packet, Wendy, there are three. There's the nice big picture review summary that looks at big picture revenues, expenditures. Then there's the variance report, which explains any if we're short on budget, if we're over. The details are in that variance report. So if you see something that looks odd, it's usually explained there. And then then there's the big monthly financial report that really gets into the details. And I know that over time Andrea will I think work in kind of breaking that down, the different sections of that report. So so there's a lot of information there. And just the other thing I wanted to mention about the extra revenue, Andrea mentioned the CARES Act funding that we were able to receive that put us actually more revenue than we anticipated. You might hear about some ARPA funding, and you'll see that special districts like libraries are eligible for it. However, in Illinois, to get that ARPA funding, we would have to go through the municipalities that we serve. And of course, I did my due diligence and reached out to the village and the other smaller municipalities, but I don't anticipate us getting any of those funds. For example, the village of Gurnee, they lost a lot of money. They really need that money. And we really survived the pandemic pretty well. Usually I don't like the fact that most of our revenues through property taxes, about 93% of it's through local property taxes. But in this instance, that provided us some security when like the village of Gurnee, where they get their money from the sales tax, so heavily reliant, they lost a lot of money. So, and I know some other schools, the Park District, they've reached out to the village, the municipalities, but I don't anticipate getting any of those funds. I mean, we'll stay in the loop. The village of Gurnee particularly has said that what they might do is there's rules on how they can distribute those funds, so maybe they would waive some fees that they might charge us for something, so we'll see. So if you hear about that money being out there and think, oh great, that's a great opportunity for the library, that ARPA funding, not so much, because I think the municipalities all are going to need that money. They're under no obligation to share it with us, and frankly, they probably need it more than we do. So I just want to give some context, because you might hear about that. So, but we continue to look, because there is funding that's become available, and we pursue these things, and if there's an opportunity for us to get the funds, we'll give it our best shot. We did, so, yeah.
We live in the land of Lincoln, so we make the most use of every penny. So without any further questions, does anybody have, I'd like to move to accept, because we can make a motion, it's action on the agenda, right, Joe? I move that we accept the June 30th, 2021 financial statements as presented.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained.
Oh, Gina has a point of order, roll call, because it's financial.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Thank you.
Farkapisi,
Aye?
Kotsini,
Aye.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Arnold,
Aye.
Linstuff,
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, so there was a vaccination policy sent today, and then when Andrea saw it, she had some edits, so both of those should be at your places. Explanation is on page 90. This is an HR policy.
Yeah, Joe, can I give this a little bit of
Please.
context? So this is something that has been, kind of, we touched on this idea of, okay, how do we handle vaccinations for staff if we end up going down that road? Because there are a few organizations that are starting to ask their staff to get the COVID-19 vaccinations. So what this policy, it's not really doing anything. This is not a vaccination mandate. This is basically just setting up a policy. So and the way this is written is if I were to come to the board and in consultation with the board, if we all agree that it's in the best interest for our staff to all get these vaccinations, if we agreed upon that, then we can move forward based on this policy. Also in there, it talks about the, kind of the hybrid approach, which seems to be what many institutions are starting to do more and more, where they're strongly encouraging staff to get the COVID-19 vaccination. But if staff are unwilling, unable to do it, maybe they have need accommodations or religious exemption or health exemption, then we would ask them to get tested on a regular basis. So that's what this policy is. This isn't, if the board adopts this and passes it, it doesn't mean we're necessarily doing any of those things. We have a policy in place if we do move down that path. And in terms of, what to do next, honestly, I think I change my mind about this all the time. It's a difficult issue, and there are pros and cons to, I think, any approach you take with this. There's no, some people there may be a clear answer in some people's minds, but there's not necessarily one in my mind. So we can certainly talk about this evening too. But this policy is just for us to have something in place where if we want to have a conversation and take action, then the parameters are in place, so.
Ryan, have you had any discussions with staff about their feelings about something like that, a mandate?
Well, I think, once again, I will say that most of our staff, the majority of our staff are vaccinated. So,
Okay.
I think I'm very careful of with those conversations, but those staff that have volunteered that to others, there are various reasons people aren't vaccinated. I think with the FDA approval of the Pfizer vaccine,
Right.
we might see some people that were a little nervous get the vaccine, but I think it just varies. So it does seem though like I think there would be a lot of staff that wouldn't mind if we were to mandate them but we have so many staff that are vaccinated. So it's tricky, and I have a open mind to this. And I think maybe the first step, if we were to, take this step, would be the strongly encourage vaccinations, which we have, and then with that add the testing. I'm looking into the testing right now. The challenge with the testing is, well, one of the challenges we'd have to pay for it unless we were to send staff to get free testing, and that's possible. I know at CLC, for example, Grace Lake campus, there's the Shield Illinois. Shield Illinois is that test they developed, the saliva test they developed at the University of Illinois.
Right.
And K through 12 schools, I think they're all getting it for free.
I was just going to say, we have that at our school.
Yeah, I know Woodland School District, they're doing it for the students, unless parents opt out.
Right.
So, maybe that's an option. I'm still waiting to hear back from them about what possibilities might be for us. If we were to pay somebody, I think the fees are anywhere from $40 to $100 a test. So
Oh,
if you're
boy.
talking about,
Yeah,
if we did it twice a week for staff that are unvaccinated, that's 20 tests a week, 80 tests a month. That number gets
Adds
pretty
up.
high, which we did budget
How
for.
many, do we have any, so right now, that's all numbers. Do we have any sense, like, is it 10 or is it 100 people that haven't been vaccinated? Do we know?
Yeah, it's around 10, yeah.
okay,
Okay, that makes a difference.
sure.
Yeah, and so once again, let's use that 10 number as a baseline. And if you want to do twice a week, that's 80 tests. If it's $100 a test, $8,000 a month, which we
Right.
didn't budget
That's
for. So,
Yeah.
but maybe there's a way to find a free test. Maybe we could, partner with that CLC Grays Lake. I don't know. I'm still working out those details and pursuing that. So that gets complicated. But I do think that it's worth discussing and exploring, because if we can't make everyone get vaccinated, which we know is a step in the right direction in keeping our staff safe and the public safe, then that's the next best step. So it's a tough situation.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Okay, well, is there a way, like, maybe we can look at, maybe there's a close by CVS or Walgreens that can help us with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
potentially. Yeah.
Take a look at it or something.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we could just partner with somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the thing, because as much as I would like to be able to say to the board, this is what I think we should do and move forward, it may take a little more time to, the more I think about it, to put it together, because, that's why I think this is probably the good first step, because then we'll meet in a couple more weeks and we can continue to have this discussion. And inevitably, I mean, we will know a lot more. I feel like 2 weeks we'll feel like months worth of information, because that's how things are developing. So I'm sure many of you probably have some different insights from when we met, 3 weeks ago. Maybe the organizations have changed, so in terms of what they're thinking on this. So, but it's definitely a tough situation.
So has everybody had a chance to read the tracks?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so if we go ahead and take action on this, then it's got to come back to us soon to put the form,
Oh, yeah,
the accommodation form.
Right, the accommodation form.
So we
Which
could
I
add-
think we have, like a standard accommodation form that we would use for other
Okay.
accommodations. So I think that's already existing. I just don't have it attached to this policy.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, in here we talk about COVID and influenza. Are we gonna require staff to get the flu vaccine?
No, this policy doesn't require any vaccines. The idea is that, if you look under scope, that second paragraph, if it's determined, if we jointly determine, my thinking is, if I come to the board and say, I really think that all staff need to get the COVID-19 vaccine, assuming the board agrees on that, then specifically, we would ask staff to get that vaccine. So it doesn't.
I would strike it then, I guess. I think it
Yeah.
kinda sends a mixed message.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Actually, I would rather keep it in there, only
I would
because
too.
it gives us the sense that this is not a one-shot
That's right,
policy.
that's
It
right.
says such as, it just means they're
Well, would we-
examples.
Would we make that stance then?
Would
Sorry?
you what?
Would we make that stance on a flu shot?
Not
As being-
necessarily, we might
We're
not
just
make it for
making
COVID
it
either.
as a
It's just a
option.
framework for the kinds of actions you could take, and those are just 2 examples. Would you feel better if there were more examples?
Measles, for example,
Yeah.
might want to be on here, but I think the most common ones we see yearly are the flu shot, which is probably why that was called out. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and just to give this some context, this policy, the template came from SHRM, which is Society of Human Resources Managers or something, I think that's right.
Management.
Yeah, management.
For
So,
human
so they,
resources.
we looked at different sample policies, and theirs seemed to be the most, most concise, and matched what And one of the things I should mention too is I've spoken with Mark Ritzman, who was with Peregrine Stein, and you know, this was his recommendation at this point is if you're going to move forward with this, you would want to do strongly encourage testing, but then staff that are unvaccinated get the weekly or twice weekly testing. He says that could change though once it's FDA approved, and I haven't had a conversation with him since FDA approval the other day. So once again, you know, according to him, you know, the clients he talks to, everyone's kind of wondering what to do at this point and trying to figure this out because there are some unanswered questions and potentially some unintended consequences if you move forward with any of these. And I guess that's why I'm a little bit, you know, indecisive here because this is a tough decision, and no matter how strongly, you know, I'll say for the record that I. You know, I've done a lot of reading and research into the safety of these vaccines, and I feel, you know, confident that, you know, I got the vaccine. I feel good about that. But at the end of the day, you're still asking someone else, an employee, to stick something into their arm, right? So that makes me a little uncomfortable. But you know, is it for the greater good? We're dealing with the pandemic that we're trying to beat. You know, so it's tough. I don't have to tell everyone here that. Andrea.
I'm happy to have a framework in place in the event that we need it. I don't know if it's something that, you know, future variants may be killing 2-year-olds in massive numbers, or I don't know if there are other governments who can impose it upon us. But I think it's a good idea to have it ready should we need it. But in the event that we discuss actually enforcing a particular vaccine, I would really want to hear from employees, both, you know, on both sides, because, you know, their opinions are important to us to consider. So, you know, I'm ready to vote for this, but I do, if we create a mandatory vaccine, I would really like to hear from as many employees to come to the meeting as possible with no judgment on either side, just to hear what they have to say.
I don't know, there might be some disadvantages to doing this, but one thing, Andrea, you talking about this made me think that maybe we should do some kind of survey of staff, because I don't know that maybe an anonymous survey, because I don't know that all staff would feel comfortable coming to a meeting and.
Oh, they're always
Right.
welcome.
Yeah.
As
Oh, they're always welcome, obviously, but I know,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want them to feel imposed upon that they have to show up. Just encourage, you know, should they want to speak.
But a survey might give a more accurate picture of where
Mhm.
people are at.
Exactly.
if they-
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Exactly.
opposed to a survey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then could we go back to your concern about the language of examples? Are you?
I mean, the COVID is mentioned multiple times, influenza once. It just feels a little odd. Either it's broad or it's not. I don't have a strong preference either way. I just think it should be more intentional.
Okay, what do other people think about this?
I agree with her. It seemed to be very COVID focused.
Yeah,
And
this
then a
is little
throwaway
too
for
COVID
influenza.
focused.
So is it intentional or not?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
Kind of just like influenza
Yeah.
was just added, but not thought through
Right.
throughout
Like,
the
what
document.
we've got the examples about how the COVID vaccine is
Right,
currently
works.
free to
Free, yeah.
individuals.
Mhm.
But, you know, is that really pertinent? It's just if a mandatory vaccine is not covered by insurance, or they end up having to pay out of pocket. It really wouldn't
I
matter
think we
what
could
type of
actually
vaccine.
eliminate most of that paragraph just by saying not covered by employees' health insurance or public health
Right.
resources. I don't know what you would call that as, though. Lake
I
County.
like public health resources.
Public health resources.
I'm writing.
Which paragraph are you talking about, George?
The second one under
Procedures.
procedures now we're down to.
Okay, that we have all the red in, okay.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
The other thing I'll mention on here, the way this is written, I don't see an easy way to require different requirements for different job roles. We have some individuals who have direct public contact and some who have almost no public contact. It might give us more flexibility with a policy like this if those who have direct public contact or work in certain areas might be required at a different level than those who were, back of house and never.
Instead, could we put something in that if you are able to work from your home and you choose to do so, you may be exempt?
See, that's too narrow, though. I think we would want to give the director or the staff, human resource generalist, more leeway based on specific job requirements. And we don't want to get into that level of detail in a policy. We want to leave that to our administrators.
Or is there some way to say like public-facing roles of people in a position of public-facing, or so it's
Except
just
if we're
that?
trying, one of the goals is to keep staff safe. and
That's what I was gonna say,
I wouldn't
Joe.
want to sit next to the person,
Right.
the unvaccinated person, and I just wouldn't want to.
I know, I agree.
So I wouldn't
All or
be in
nothing.
favor of letting them out because they're in back of house, because they're still exposed to other
Other
employees.
employees who then might be going out into the public.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, how do other people feel about that?
I mean, well, my fear is or concern is for employees who have who are immunocompromised. So if somebody has a transplant, and I don't know if anybody here does, but the vaccine is not as effective for them because the immunosuppressants are interacting with the vaccine, and it's not. I have a close friend who does have a transplant, and they don't have the antibodies that they should.
Yeah.
And so, plus being immunocompromised, if they do get it, they're going to get it worse because they don't have immunities. Like, even in normal times, they don't have normal immunities. And if we have somebody sitting next to somebody else who has this problem, we could be, putting them in danger.
Well, and that's what I think Joe means, is that we want to keep everybody safe, our staff as well as the general public that walks in the door. So I think it's got to be the entire staff if we're going to do something like this, rather than, otherwise people might be juggling, positions if they, I don't know, just.
The only reason I bring it up comes down to risk profile. If you have somebody who's interacting with 50 to 100 people a
Right.
day, that's very different than somebody who's in back of house,
Oh, I
sitting in
agree
their
with that,
cubicle.
George. Yeah, I do.
The likelihood and window of infection is much smaller. So it may or may not be relevant. I don't know or care to know the specific health circumstances of any one of our employees.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to make sure this policy is broad enough to give our administrators what they need to keep everyone here safe.
Okay, so next steps, let me just make sure I'm understanding what everybody's saying correctly. One change would be to have less emphasis in this policy on COVID and have it be more generally talking about, just generally talking about vaccinations. Is that correct?
Right,
Okay.
right.
Second one is to simplify the second paragraph under procedures, also to kind of remove some of the COVID references and make it more general. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else that we can work on? The rest, is everybody good with the rest? And then the form will have to come later?
Yeah, so what I might suggest is maybe what we would do is maybe we should have a special meeting after committee of the whole, so we can, because I think we still need to do some work on
Yeah.
this.
Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
And then, and at that point, we might want to make a definitive decision on the path moving forward.
So we'll work on editing it, we'll put it in the CW packet, and then we'll have a special meeting afterwards just to vote on it. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. Is everybody good with that?
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Go ahead.
So, but as it stands right now, we're not planning to say that there's any particular vaccine that someone is mandatory. This is just in
Planning.
preparation only.
Right.
So,
Right.
right now, as it stands right now, we're not expecting to put an action item on the special meeting agenda to name a specific vaccine.
No, the
This is-
agenda
Okay.
item would just be to approve this policy as it's changed.
Well, I was gonna say, though, I think the advantage of a special meeting is, some information may come out, which would, allow us to move forward. So let's
Right.
say we can't get free shield testing, and we decide, okay, this is manageable, so maybe I would want to ask the board to, strongly encourage staff to get the vaccine, otherwise we want testing. So I don't want to take that off the table necessarily, but at the very least during the special meeting, we could approve the policy.
Do we need to add something to the policy where we don't make a mandatory vaccination, but we do make testing mandatory?
Yeah, it is
That's
in
kind of,
here.
that's what it says.
Yeah.
I thought that was just when they were having an exemption from a mandatory vaccine.
It's,
No.
No?
it's on page 2 above.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically, yeah, so basically, we determined that employees regularly providing proof of a negative test for certain infectious diseases such as COVID-19 is an acceptable alternative to vaccination. But the idea is, maybe we need to change the wording there a little bit, but yeah, the idea is that would be in the policy as well, so.
Okay.
All right,
One more.
and if you
Sorry.
think of any other, if you have some aha moments, just contact Ryan and I, and we'll get working on it.
Can I
Okay?
just ask one more on the reasonable accommodation? Isn't that like a standard form we have, or is it gonna be unique? to
Yeah,
this?
it is a standard
It's
form.
standard, so is
Yeah.
it gonna be an appendix, or is it just a standard form, or exhibit? A?
I think
It'll
it makes
just
sense to
be- Yeah,
attach it, so
Better
it's here.
if it's in
Yeah,
there, I think.
yeah.
But then you have to maintain it 2 places? If it ever gets
I-
out of sync?
I'm sorry, could you say that
I
again?
guess you would.
Like any reasonable accommodation, it's not like specific to a vaccine, right? So that process should be the same, that's all I'm asking. And it's standard process, and the form is standard.
You make we'll brainstorm on that, that's a good point, because we have.
Because like how we handle it at my work, it just goes, any accommodation through the same
Right,
channel.
uh-huh.
It's not a special
Right, not a special.
COVID anything,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
right.
accommodation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we move on? Okay. So we're on to 4030, which is on page 91. You want to talk about it?
Do I need to, I guess I wasn't, I didn't understand why it wasn't on,
Because we wanted to allow Wendy to vote on it.
okay.
And at the time, Wendy wasn't officially any board member, so I think that was why it was,
Right.
yeah.
Anything that has Wendy's name on it had to come in this
Through.
packet after the point where she was
Got it.
officially added.
Okay. So 4030's in the packet, page 91. We have the new fiscal budget numbers. We have all the employee information. We have our new trustee.
Right.
And then the org chart was updated on Exhibit B.
Want to make a motion?
Okay?
You want to make a motion?
Oh. Do I need to move?
Hey, Wendy, you want to make a motion?
Sure. Move to accept it?
This
Is
is
that-
15C.
Right. What we would usually say is that you move to approve policy 4030 FOIA as presented.
As
Okay.
presented.
All right, so I move we accept policy 4030 as accepted.
I'll second that. Oh, got it. Yeah. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Great. Okay, board rosters on page 98. Is that right? 96. It says 96, but my
98.
page says 98.
Yep.
I move that the board ratify the current board roster for filing.
I'll second. Sorry, George, go ahead.
Okay, discussion? Do we need a roll call for this? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain. Okay, IPLAR. You want to explain it to Wendy?
Oh, yeah, so the Illinois Public Library Annual Report, this is, basically, we're required to submit it to the state. And so this is one of our per capita grant requirements, so we get our funding from the state of Illinois. So basically what this is, and there's something like this in every state, they call it different things. And it just goes into the details of the library in terms of just a lot of information, and what's nice about these reports that they do state to state is that it's a good way to kind of benchmark yourself against other libraries in the state of Illinois, against other libraries across the country, so. And I know the state library uses this data to help, make decisions, determine is there training that's needed, do we need to allocate more resources towards this and that, so it's useful information. It is a challenge to do, and as always, my appreciation to everyone that submits information, but particularly Gina for putting this all together.
Yes,
So,
Gina.
thank you, Gina.
Woo-hoo.
Okay, I move that the board approve 2021 Illinois Public Library Annual Report, IPLAR, to be submitted to the Illinois State Library pursuant to law.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay, audit info?
I don't really have any updates. I mean, things are going, according to plan. So I think we're still on schedule. I don't have anything to report really.
Okay, treasurer's report?
I think that's here because that comes after, I believe this comes after the audit, and it's something that I think Lauterbach and Anna puts this together for us, and we review it and sign off on it. But this is due at the end of the calendar year for the state, so we've got some time. I'm not sure why it's on the agenda.
Okay, items for the next September meeting?
Oh, just as a
Oh,
facilities.
sorry, I skipped facilities.
Yeah, so next, at the September committee of the whole, we will do our, usually the annual facilities tour. We didn't do it last year, but we're gonna do it this year, and Kevin will lead us through the facility, and we'll talk about, not only look at completed projects, but we'll also look at projects we might want to consider for the future. So this is a good thing to come and take notes, and as we get into that budget cycle, when we talk about these projects early in 2022, you'll have an idea of what we're discussing, so. So it's good, it's a fun tour, and a good chance to see behind the scenes of the building, ask questions. Yeah.
Okay, and now agenda items for September. Anything else that's not on here? Okay.
I just
Anyone-
want to remind people at the September meeting, we start 6:45.
That's
Right? I'm
right.
sorry,
Yes,
what?
it's the.
At the
Public
regular board,
hearings at
The
6:45.
Yeah, the B&A hearing is at 6:45.
at the regular board.
And so,
Yep.
Wendy, there's a series of ordinances that we passed leading up to the adoption of the tax levy in December. And so what this hearing is, we will publish the budget and appropriation ordinance, and then members of the public have a chance to look at that, and they can come in and give the board feedback before it's adopted by the board. So it's a transparent process that gives the public a chance to give feedback about that budget appropriations, so.
All right, anyone want to speak in public forum?
I just wanted to mention one thing. If you go into the vault, you might notice Kevin and David put together something new so that we can monitor the amount of people in that room. And it pops up on the screen, and it's green, and it tells how many in, and because we're making it less amount than the normal room occupancy. And it's really neat, and I even noticed the other day that some group went in there, they were like touring, which meant that there were one more person, and you go in, and it'll beep, and you go out, and it goes off. But it actually turned from green to red to indicate that there were too many people in there, but it's very smooth, and it's up on the screen, and the staff have it right there, and don't have to worry about it. So even the fact that we're doing it at a lower occupancy now, it'll be very handy, because it's a teen area, and a lot of the kids, gather there, and so it's really cool if you want to check it out.
I did, I saw it. I just was casually walking in there when I came to sign checks, and just to check out the
You walk in,
library.
it says one.
I was surprised, and it's like big, you can't miss it. I walked in and out a couple times just to take pictures.
It's very cool.
100% accurate.
And they also have the new plexiglass in the vault now around
Oh,
the
I'll
desk.
have to go
So
see it.
a lot of that stuff is going on now, so great. Thanks for that.
Okay, any other announcements besides what's in here?
I've got a couple of things. Save the date, October 7th, which is a Thursday. It is the Intergovernmental Picnic's coming back. And I believe it's at one of the fire stations. Is the new fire station outdoors? But I don't have all the details. I don't even know what time it starts, but the village is hosting this year. Mayor Tom Hood, who was recently elected, who's been on the village board for a while now, he was excited to host the event, so he volunteered the village, and should be a nice event. So what the Intergovernmental Picnic is, it's all the intergovernmental bodies, the school districts, the village, the park district, the township, the library district, of course, and we basically kind of get together and we all share what's going on at our respective intergovernmental bodies, and it's a good event because it talks about how much we work together. We really have a great working relationship with all of our intergovernmental partners, so that'll be a good event. So that's October 7th, Thursday. Time and exact location to be determined, so put that on your calendar. And then we're closed on Labor Day. That's not on here. That's September 6th, and Library Card Senate Month is in September. So spread the word here.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Well,
Library Card Sign-Up Month.
Oh, library
September.
card, got
So
it.
if you have friends, neighbors, colleagues that have a library card, it's a chance to advocate for them to sign up.
Anyone else? Okay, who would like to move to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 801, 802. Thank you.
Okay.
Yay.
Thanks, everybody.